Right, we've got the another update. We're getting there. It's not far off it now. Just got a few bits and pieces being sorting through. I'm waiting. I've ordered an exhaust. I was going to make one, but it's just to get the bits I need. It just made sense to buy one. There was one, but I couldn't get an e30 exhaust. I had to get a 318 Ti exhaust that will possibly fit, but it might just need a bit of adapting. Right, I'll run you around, show you what I've been doing. Right, it's been getting polished. Yeah, it's just well dusty at the moment. There's a lot of the polishing mop seemed to come off with it, but yeah, it's getting there. It was getting the residue off the stickers was a bit of a nightmare. And the window, I'll have to see if I can do something with that. I've only taken half the stickers off that, but yeah, it's all tidying up and it's starting to look quite clean. Now, fuel pump. We've got a swirl pot, fuel filter. Fuel comes up through the fuel filter, gets sucked into the lift pump, which is a low pressure pump, pumps it into the swirl pot. So in the swirl pot, it will fill the swirl pot, comes out the bottom of the swirl pot and goes into the high pressure Bosch pump, which then goes round into the fuel filter. Then that makes its way to the engine. So it comes back from the fuel pressure regulator down this pipe here, which goes back into the swirl pot, and then there will obviously be too much fuel in the swirl pot, so this is the overflow which goes back to the fuel tank. I haven't actually wired it up yet, so I'm thinking of putting it on switches for now, but it will run off the ECU. Inside the car, the hydraulic handbrake was at a funny angle. It was leaning over towards the driver's side. It wasn't nice, didn't like it. So straighten that up, and I've made an aluminium plate to go around the gear lever, so I can fit the rubber gaiter to stop any fumes or anything getting in. Not really done much else inside. It's all, I've been trying to clear the rubbish out, but haven't started on the inside of the car yet. They all take time, these jobs. Right. In the engine bay. Now the airbox. That has been, I've cut aluminium to seal up the gaps there was on the airbox. I've used rivets. It's got silicone between the joints. I'm pretty confident that will be an airtight seal. And then we've run it through silicone hose to the mass air sensor, I think it is, with an air filter. So basically, it's ready to start. Just got to plug the ECU in, put some water in it, and it should start. But it hasn't got an exhaust, so I'm not going to try it without an exhaust on it. This is a fuel pressure regulator. It's got a gauge there, which I can't really see, but I might turn it around. I've only got to see it to check what pressure the pump's running and what pressure the regulator cuts out at. Right, now from the vacuum for the servo, this is the pipe that comes from the servo. It runs along here, up a T, to a vacuum switch. So when the vacuum gets low, the switch closes, makes a connection, which will make this vacuum pump come on. Now I'm just making a bracket for it at the moment. Oh, it's on it. Yeah, so it's got a bracket on it. So I can bolt it down here. And then this is the pipe that the switch has been teed off, and that will go onto the pump. So that way I should be able to get vacuum for the servo, which will make the brakes work. Originally, there were 4 holes here with a tube that ran across the top that you could take a vacuum off, and that would run the servo, but unfortunately these didn't have it. So I thought I'd do, these aren't expensive, so I thought I'd do that anyway. I used to run a Subaru with anti-lag, and the servo never worked on that because there was no inlet manifold vacuum. So I ran an electric vacuum pump on that, but this seems a much better idea than the one I ran on the Subaru. So basically I'll run that through a relay, so I'll turn it on and off, run it off the ignition as well, so it's not going to be on all the time, only when the ignition's on. And that'll be handy, especially if you're getting towed and you've got to have the ignition, the engine off. You can leave the ignition on and you still have brakes, because I hate these servo assisted brakes when the servo doesn't work. That was scary driving the Subaru, because sometimes you'd have brakes and other times you wouldn't. Yeah, that's about as far as we've got so far. Yes, I'd just like to say why I fitted a swirl pot. The other car, the rally car, I've done a few rallies and a few hill climbs now, and I have to run 3/4 tank of fuel minimum. If I run any less than that, I start losing power. Steep hills, going around corners. It's there's only a small bowl in the tank to hold the fuel in, which works fine, I presume, when you've got tyres that don't grip much. But when you're tanking it around a corner and you've got grippy tyres, you're getting a lot of force on the fuel. It's all going to one side of the tank, and it doesn't splutter or cough or anything. It just goes down on power. And I didn't realise, I knew something was wrong when I first started doing it, and the first event I did was a bunch of hill climbs, and I was lacking in power. I did realise on the second day what it was, and topped it up, and every now and then it will drop below, just below 3/4 of a tank, and I'll notice a drop in power. So what the swirl pot does is, if there's only a tiny bit of fuel in the tank, it doesn't matter if it's a bit intermittent, because the swirl pot will have a reserve of fuel in it. So it's never going to be a long enough corner to use all the fuel from the swirl pot. So that should hopefully get out of the problem. And I'm sort of testing it out on the Red e30, with the plans of putting it into the rally car, and also the other rally car, the Rothmans one. The fuel tank in the Red e30 is out of the Rothmans car. So the Rothmans car is running the e30 tank and the Red e30 tank. And the Red e30 is a later model with twin pickup sensors in the tank. So I've wired up the Rothmans car with one tank sender. There's two tank senders in the tank, but there's only wiring for one sender. So I can fill up with petrol and it'll say I'm full, and then by the time I've driven down the road, it'll go to half full. So it's because it hasn't got a pipe to join both halves of the tank together. So what I really need to do is swap the tanks over. Now that the Red e30 has been cleaned out, it's yeah, that's why I didn't want to use it on the other car, because it was dirty inside, but it's lovely inside now. So I'll try it out on the red car. I'll get it insured and drive about for a bit. I've just got to get this exhaust on, and then that'll be that sorted out. I also put the throttle cable on, so I've gone with a standard throttle cable. That's ready. The car's just about done. I've done a bit more wiring with the vacuum pump and the fuel pumps. I need to get the dash finished off so I can get some switches and a few bits and pieces in, but I'm not worried about doing that at the moment. I'm more worried about getting the vacuum pump working and getting the fuel pumps working, so even if they just come on with the ignition, I'll be able to drive the car and use it. I can always put relays and sort things out, switches in afterwards, and run it off the ECU or whatever I'm doing. So that's it for now. I'll keep you updated when more happens.